Most of us were handed exactly one version of what our career was supposed to look like. You go to school, you get the credential, you do the thing you were trained to do. And for a lot of people, that one path becomes the only path they think exists. But if you listen to this podcast, I'm going to guess that that's not you. My guest this week, Katie Dodd, is a registered dietitian who figured out that there were about 100 other ways that she could use her expertise, and she found the first one by accident. She sat next to another dietitian on a plane, got offered legitimate money to update a continuing education article, and realized that she had been volunteering away her expertise for years without ever once considering that people would pay for it. That moment turned into a whole business built on multiple streams of income. We get into what a side hustle actually is and why it doesn't just have to be a bridge out of your current job. We also talk about the difference between active and passive income and how she built products that still pay her years after she made them. She shares why she focused on one thing at a time instead of chasing everything at once. And I think the part that a lot of you need to hear is that it took her 18 months of building before the money got good. And she shares why that slow stretch was actually the whole point of the process. If you've ever felt boxed in by the career you picked before your brain was fully formed at age 25, if you're wondering, or you're still sitting on an idea that you keep telling yourself is too out there to be profitable, this conversation will open things up for you. Now, a quick note before we get into it. This is part of an interview series that I'm running on the podcast all summer long. Bringing on guests like Katie lets me lighten my own load during a season where my focus time is pretty limited, while still getting you really strong conversations that help you build the business you want on your terms, which is exactly what Katie's whole philosophy is all about. All right, let's get into it with Katie Dodd. Most business advice is built on one key assumption: that what worked for someone else will work for you too. The Nourished CEO podcast exists to challenge that assumption and point to a better way. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, strategic advisor and business coach with over 15 years of experience online and multiple millions of dollars earned from my own business. I'm also a mom of two and a devoted wife who runs it all in about 20 hours a week. This show is for the established coach, consultant, or service provider who is done following someone else's playbook and is ready to build a joyful, profitable business from their own authority. Every episode is a direct, no-filters conversation about the real challenges you're facing in your business, with honest strategy and practical action steps that you can actually use right now. Because working smarter and building something sustainable matters a lot more than just chasing a bigger number. No recycled advice or empty inspiration here, just honest, integrity-driven conversations about building a business that fits your life as much as it fits your goals, so that it gives more than it takes while nourishing everything you're building outside of it. If that sounds like the breath of fresh air you're looking for, you're in the right place. I am so excited to have with us on the Nourished CEO podcast today, Katie Dodd. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
I know I was on yours a little while back earlier this year, so it's really nice to be able to have you come on here and chat about your expertise. And I know that you have a personal story that has informed why you do what you do. So for the people that don't know you, do you want to just give us whatever version of the story you want to tell? I know for me personally, I'm like, this has been like a 15-year journey, so there's a lot of information to share. But just to share a little bit about how did you even become an expert on building out side hustles and additional streams of income as a health expert?
So I am a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian since 2008, and I got a job right out of school working in home care at the VA. I loved that job. I was paid well, but I got to this point where I started having children. Life was lifing, bills were expensive, and I was like, okay, how can I make more money? Now, a little bit of backstory along this. I also volunteer a lot within the field to a point where it's almost a problem to where sometimes I'm better now, but sometimes I would have like three roles at a time. So I was very much into volunteering in the field. I loved giving back. I love volunteering, even in my job. I always did so many different roles. I refer to it now as like I was an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur in my job. I've always
Mhm.
been an entrepreneur. I just didn't know it. And I didn't identify as an entrepreneur, primarily because I thought that entrepreneurs had to work with patients. I didn't realize that there are so many opportunities to make impact and income outside of one-on-one patient care. But during the season, that's what I thought. So I'm going along, I'm having kids, finances are getting tighter. And my story actually is kind of a fun one because how I actually got into the world of side hustles and entrepreneurship was because I sat next to a dietitian on a plane. And so the backstory behind that is I was at a nutrition conference in Texas because of my volunteer roles. They paid for me to be at this conference. And I met a dietitian there who happened to live in Southern Oregon, where I lived, who was an entrepreneur who actually started a CEU, a continuing education company in the 1980s. She shifted, transitioned to online, sold her company, was a very successful entrepreneur. And we happened to sit next to each other on a plane going home. I'm picking her brain. I'm asking more about what it is she does. And because I'm a volunteer, I was like, hey, maybe I could job shadow you, learn more about what you do. And so she gave me her business card, said, email me in a week. And so I did. And she happened to see that I was a board certified specialist in gerontological nutrition. So my expertise is in geriatrics. And she said, hey, Katie, I actually need someone to update a continuing education article. Would you be interested? And I said, yes, of course, I'd love to learn more. And then she sends me a contract that has terms of payment. And I know this sounds silly, but I've been volunteering for so long that the idea that someone would pay me for my expertise outside of my traditional job was just like, whoa, who knew?
Yeah.
So, so I fell into the world of side hustling by accident, and it was so fun. I learned so much. It was something that I could do. It was really freelance writing is what I was doing, and it was flexible. I could do it, when my kids were asleep, just whenever it fit my schedule. And I feel like from then on out, I was like, who else could pay me? So from there, I started doing webinars. I started doing brand work, and I was doing work for other people until 2019 when I attended a nutrition conference. I feel like I go to these conferences and these big things happen in my life.
Gotta leave the house more, right?
So at this conference, there were three amazing entrepreneurial dietitians speaking, and I swear they were speaking directly into my soul. And that day, I realized that I was an entrepreneur. Because again, I always like, oh, entrepreneurs work with patients. I don't want to work with patients outside my job. That's not me. I realized, wait a minute, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to do something big. I just don't know what it looks like yet. So I knew I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to go beyond just working for other people more as a contractor, and I wanted to build my own brand. So I eventually discovered the world of blogging. And in 2019, actually in June, I started my blog called The Geriatric Dietitian. I learned all the strategy behind it. Shortly thereafter, I started working with a business coach, which that really changed the game because, I was a dietitian by trade, but learning actual business principles was what I needed to take what I was doing to the next level. At the end of 2019, I started a little podcast called Dietitian Side Hustle, really because I wanted to share with more people all the cool things we could do without working with patients. And so I started this podcast as a hobby. I started building this blog business, which started making money, started getting good traffic. And then my business dietitian side hustle really started growing beyond just a side hustle podcast. It became where I was helping other dietitians start online businesses. And then it expanded to where I started helping other healthcare professionals build their own online businesses. And kind of fast forwarding the story, eventually at the end of 2021, I ended up leaving my full-time job at the VA, which was a wonderful job. But one thing that was really important to me is as a mom, my little kiddos were getting old fast. I feel like I blinked. I was like, I'm pregnant, and now like this kid's so tall, and I'm like, what's happening? I wanted to be home with my kids. So I started off as a side hustler, eventually became a full hustler, where now I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I get to be home with my kids. I get to do work that I love. I still consider, I know before we hit record, I was talking like, well, I often refer to side hustles as additional streams of income. You could be a full-time entrepreneur and still add side hustles, still add, different streams of income. And so I really built this whole business around building out multiple streams of income, multiple streams of traffic, multiple businesses, and just have really built something that I love where I get to help people and really just build a life I never thought was possible.
I love that. And I love that it's so serendipitous that things happen that just made you aware. And the fact that she was a dietitian and, had that stuff going on. And even just the fact that I guess it's just that idea that, of course, I would pay somebody for this work. It wasn't like, oh, maybe I can get it done for free and Katie will probably just like volunteer. And so I think that's really cool that you had somebody in that season of your life to spark the belief for you, because I'm sure you probably would have done it for free if you were big into
Totally.
volunteering and interning and that kind of thing. Do you have any thoughts about why you associated entrepreneurship with direct face-to-face client work?
I think it's because in school, there was so little taught to us about entrepreneurship. We were just really taught the traditional routes of being a dietitian in clinical, in food service, and community, and then private practice is an option, but private practice is working with patients one-on-one. So I think it was just lack of exposure and lack of awareness to the other things that health professionals can do outside of working with patients one-on-one. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it really stemmed just from school. I was only shown one path, and so in my head, I'm like, that's the path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was something that I was really fortunate to have experienced alternative ways of working even in grad school as a becoming a dietitian, not even as a dietitian. And because I remember when I told my I mean, I don't know. I guess she was an advisor. I think I had one meeting with her the entire 3 years I was there. So I remember she asked what kind of job I was going to get when I graduated. And I was like, well, I've been working doing this, blog management and content creation and program design and everything for this guy. I think I'm going to start my own version of that. And she was like, don't you think you should get a real job to get experience and maybe like do that for a bit before you start a business? I was like, no, why would I do that? That's not going to help me at all. So I feel like even for those of us who knew what was available and, how it could be done, there was still some level of, what's the word? Just, I don't say suppression. That sounds a little bit aggressive. It's kind of this idea that because the people that were leading those programs didn't know about this stuff, they didn't speak to it as, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Like they looked at it as this big risk that I was taking, right? And maybe you shouldn't do that. So even if you had been exposed to it during school, somebody might have said, no, you shouldn't do that because that's not traditional dietetic stuff.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the word side hustle, because I feel like sometimes when I think about side hustle, I think about it as working on building your business while you have a full-time job, and then eventually turning your side, kind of like what you're saying, turning your side hustle into your full-time work that you're doing, but still kind of like one particular thing that you're focused on, building up a particular type of business, particular type of clients, that kind of thing. So how do you think about side hustles when you're sharing it with your community, with your clients, with all the people that you impact on this topic?
Well, I think traditionally a side hustle is just something that's done outside of traditional employment. So traditional employment is typically worked in order to make ends meet, pay your bills, insurance, all the benefits. It's more something that we are required to do. Where a side hustle is typically outside of that. It's not it's more something that we do either because it's passion, it can be to make more money, it can be to eventually leave your full-time job. But I think one of the things I try to emphasize when it comes to side hustles is it could be whatever you want it to be. I think sometimes healthcare pros can, struggle with, oh, I feel kind of guilty to say I just want to make more money. There's nothing wrong with making more money. Some people feel like, well, if I work a side hustle, my ultimate goal should be to be a full-time entrepreneur. And if that's not my goal, it must mean I don't believe in myself. But also, I think some people, they might want to do a side hustle because they're passionate about it. They're working a job, makes ends meets. It's a decent job, but it's not like why they became the healthcare pro. So for some people, the side hustle is the passion project. It kind of drives them. It's something that makes them excited. But also, they have no interest in full-time entrepreneurship because I love being an entrepreneur. But I also know not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. There's ups, there's downs. You don't have the steady paycheck. It's a whole different beast. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But some people, they like safety, they like security, they like I show up to work, I get paid every 2 weeks, I'm good. And so,
Hmm.
so a side hustle doesn't have to be a bridge to leave. So it could be perfectly reasonable if your goal is I just want to do something on the side. But also, your goal could be I don't want to work traditional anything. I want to be my own business owner, but I'm also not ready just to dive in. Some people, the risk levels vary. Some people are like, let's go all in. I'm quitting the job today. Where other people want safety plans for their safety plans. That's kind of me. And so a lot of times people will start a business on the side with the goal to eventually, once I build this up, then I will leave.
Hmm.
So so really a side hustle, I guess from my perspective, is just something that you do outside of traditional employment, but also can be additional streams of income. Because like I said, you
Hmm.
could be an entrepreneur and you work with patients, that's your primary income streams, but then you're like, you know what? I think I want to add on some other streams of income to build out what I'm doing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me about for the person who already has their own business, who's thinking about adding more streams of income. What do you think would be some of the reasons why somebody would either consider doing that or feel like they were ready to do something like that? I ask because as somebody who I'm the sole income provider of my family, and running the business that I have is like I don't think I would have any level of energy or anything available for a side hustle. That doesn't mean my lifestyle is not the same as everyone else's. I'm sure if my husband had a job and had a health insurance and that kind of thing, it might be a little bit of a different story. But for the person who is not maybe like so heavily focused on their one thing that they're doing, what would be some reasons or signs that they would be a good fit for adding some of these additional streams of income?
I remember again at a conference. So these conferences are where things happen
Gotta
for me.
just go to one every year, just get all the new ideas.
But I remember at a conference, someone said that those who have the most streams of income make the most money. And my ears perked up. I'm like, tell me more. And so much of this it's about creating more income, but also creating more security too. And I'll also talk a little bit about how we could build out streams of income that aren't exclusively tied to our time. So I'll kind of mention that later too as I dive into this. But I like to think of multiple streams of income like a lake. You got a lake full of water, and imagine if that lake was only fed by one stream. What happens if that stream dries up? Well, then the lake is going to run dry eventually. Where if you have multiple streams of income and one of those streams, or multiple streams into that lake, if one of those streams dries up, well, the lake's not just going to go down because there's other streams feeding it. So for me, having multiple streams of income, it for me it's fun, it's creative, but it also creates more security because I know that okay, I work a lot with clients, healthcare professionals. I'm a coach. I do help people build businesses, but I also have a blog that brings in passive income through ad revenue. I sell courses, I sell ebooks, I sell digital products. I do webinars live and I also have ones on demand that people are purchasing and I just get residual checks. I make money through working with brands. I make money through just multiple streams of income. And one of the things that I've done is I've really worked on incorporating passive streams of income into my business. So I want to kind of talk about passive income, but I want to make clear that passive income isn't super easy free money because I think there's a lot of misconception about what's passive income. So
Hmm.
active income is where we're trading time for money. Traditional job, hourly pay for hourly work. Passive income is where you create something once, you create systems to drive traffic and people to it, and then essentially you're making money on autopilot. Now, passive income, it's not like it's free money. It takes work, it takes time, it takes intention to build up the systems to create passive income. But it is really wonderful because I know on the back end of my business is making money and I'm not actively showing up in it every day. And
Hmm.
so for me, building out multiple streams of income allows me to have flexibility, security, have fun, but also to make more income and also honestly serve more people. I feel like healthcare professionals, we're so passionate about helping people. And I think of like one of my courses, I sell it through my website, The Geriatric Dietitian, but also I have a food blog called High Calorie Recipes that's really focused on high calorie, preventing malnutrition, preventing unintended weight loss. And I have a course that I created in 2021 called Gaining Weight Made Easy. It is on demand. It is a course. People can watch it. They get all kinds of resources, videos, and education on how to gain weight. Because I recognize not everyone has access to a dietitian. Not everyone's going to see a dietitian, but anyone can purchase this course. And I recorded that in 2021, and it continues to serve people. It continues to help people. And I love checking my phone. I'm like, oh, I just made money. I didn't do anything. I did a lot of things to, create the traffic to go to that. But it's just a really cool way that I know that I can be serving people really at any time without actively trading time for money. So I know I
Hmm.
kind of went all over the board with this answer, but I hope that kind of helps on why I'm really passionate about multiple streams of income. It creates that security. It creates opportunities where you can build out income streams that aren't tied directly to your time and just
Hmm.
gives you some more flexibility in your schedule. And it's just fun.
Yeah. So for your different streams of income, how many different niches would you say those fall under?
So I have, I would say, three
Okay.
primary brands. So the food blog, my regular blog, The Geriatric Dietitian, my food blog, High Calorie Recipes, and then my brand dietitian side hustle. Now,
Hmm.
within each of those brands, I have different products, different streams of income, different things that I do, but I would say those are the three main things. And I do want to emphasize, because I feel like sometimes when I talk about, oh, the streams of income I have, it could be like, whoa, I'm just trying to build out one. But I
Hmm.
will say I started with one. I started with laser focus on one thing, and that was the geriatric dietitian.
Hmm.
And as soon as I started that blog, I actually wanted to start my food blog. But I was like, hold up, let's wait until I reach a monetary goal, which for me was ad revenue through the blog, because that's probably the biggest stream of income through that blog. Once I reached that goal, then I could create this other brand. So for
Hmm.
me, it's one thing at a time, build out those income streams. But I'm also very focused on, again, building brands that are more passive income. I will say I probably trade most time for money in the brand dietitian side hustle, but that's because I love working with dietitians and healthcare pros. So,
Hmm. Walk me through that process that you just mentioned because I'm really curious. And selfishly I'm really just thinking about my own my own approach to business. And it could be that we have very different personalities or different ways of approaching things because I'm the kind of person that I'm like I want to focus on one thing, one audience, one even if it's multiple offers within that same group. It's like the thought of having completely separate businesses is like and to be fair, it's probably not just a phase of life that I'm in that's not so super conducive to adding more complexity. But I've always been of the mindset that I'm like, I want things to be simple. I don't want to have all of these wheels turning. But also, I think what you're saying, where you build something and then it runs, is also really attractive because usually with the different things I'm selling, there's very little that's just selling without any sort of input. So, talk to me about the process of creating creating the offers for the different brands or even the different brands because maybe it's like I didn't even have this business and then I launched this business and this is how I decided. So because this obviously wasn't an overnight thing. I'm sure it took a lot of time, years to get to the place that you are with the different diversity that you have now. What was it like to focus on one thing at a time? And then how did you know you were ready? Was it just like an arbitrary decision to be like, this is the amount of money I'm going to be making before I move on? Like, how did you decide when you were ready to add more stuff each time?
sure. So I will say I am very much a big goal setter. I'm really big on goals. I have lots of plans. I've got like my 1 year plan, my 2 year plan, my 5 year plan, and my 10 year plan. And I'm not joking when I say that. I update them every year.
That's
So my
awesome.
brain is like all over the place. And so for me, I know that if I try to do all the things, I will do all the things just a little bit and not be successful at anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, if something pops in my head, like, I want to do this, okay, I will do it when I get to
Park it.
this point. Yes, yes. So I essentially I call like I get it out of my head, I get it on paper, and then I could really focus on what matters. I guess maybe I'll just kind of go backwards. So I mentioned I just fell into the world of side hustling. I was doing gigs for different people. In the very beginning, it was like, well, who can pay me? This is so cool. This is so fun. I can make money. But then once I started my own business, I knew I didn't want to work with clients one-on-one. Like I knew that early on. And then when I discovered the world of blogging, online business, internet marketing, that was fascinating to me. So I started my blog. I mentioned the Geriatric Dietitian in June of 2019. I did take courses. I worked with coaches and I learned a strategy called search engine optimization. And I learned how I could drive traffic to the website. So I drive traffic to my website through Google, through Pinterest, through YouTube. I have multiple streams of traffic to the
Oh my
website.
goodness.
But
Yeah.
but essentially, because I have this traffic in place for the website, I have been able to build out multiple streams of income, really focused on how can I serve people. I will say a lot of the products I create are based on what my audience asks. Actually, one of my first products it started off as an e-cookbook called High Calorie Shakes. And I created it because people were reaching out. Like, hey, do you have any shake recipes? Grandma's losing weight. I don't want to give her Ensure. Do you have any recipes? And I was like, well, no, but I can. And
Give me
so
a few months or give me a
yeah,
few weeks.
yeah. So I actually launched that product. It was actually in March of 2020. It was like literally the week that the world shut down. So I'm like always going to remember that product. But I launched that product and it's continued to serve people. I actually, over the last year, I got it on Amazon. So now it is print on demand and people could actually get a hard copy, which is valuable for older adults because sometimes I get messages, how do I get this PDF? And so having, a physical copy has been valuable. But I started creating my products based on what my people were asking for. Like, what does my audience need? What serves them? I sell handouts, I sell resources like workbooks, I sell cookbooks, I have like ebooks. And again, they are also available print on demand. Where else do I make money? Oh, Amazon affiliates. And so if I'm blogging and I'm talking about maybe protein powders, I'll have an Amazon affiliate link with clear disclosure. And if someone purchases through that link, I get a commission actually on whatever they buy in a 24-hour window. It's a small commission. It could be like as low as 1%, but it's all about multiple streams of income.
Volume
So
on that one.
yeah, yeah. But the
Or
beautiful
maybe they buy a TV with their protein powder.
Oh, it's fun to see. Well, that's the cool thing. They don't even have to buy the protein powder. As long as they
Yeah.
click on my link, anything they buy in 24 hours, I get a commission, which is cool to see, even on the back end of what people buy. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
look what I made a commission on. Okay, so I'm trying to remember what the exact, I feel like I've been talking so long, I'm forgetting the exact question, but
Well, we were
essentially,
talking about, yeah, just deciding the order of operations
oh,
to add
yes.
stuff.
Yeah. So for me, my biggest focus in the beginning was building traffic because I knew that I can create amazing products, but if I create these products, who's going to buy them? And
Hmm.
nothing's more frustrating than creating a product, launching it into the world, and it's a flop and you feel like a failure and you're not a failure. It's just marketing is hard.
Hmm.
Finding the right people to sell to is hard. And so for me, that's where blogging really created that solution because, I've got all these people coming to my website every single day. Most people are just going to go there, read the information, leave, probably not even know they were on the Geriatric Dietitian. That's okay.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
some people are there to stay. They get on my email list. They, go check out my shop page. I have links spread through my blog articles with calls to action on different things that could help them. So having a large volume of people coming to the blog really does help. I've hired staff over the years to help run and manage the blog. And honestly, I very seldom touch it anymore. And it still makes passive income and it still helps people. So again, I started with that and I started slowly. First, build traffic, create systems to drive traffic. Then my products are passive. So I mentioned like those handouts. I create them and they're on systems where people click on a link. They put in their credit card information, they're sent that. I'm hands off. I don't do anything. Same
Hmm.
thing with my course, same thing with books. Most of the income that I've created, and this was with a lot of intention, has been completely passive. Because when I first started the business, I guess I should back this up, I was working full time at the VA, volunteering far too much. I'm a mom of two kids. And I knew I was almost forced into the situation to where I can't spend tons of time spinning my wheels. I only have so much time. My
Hmm.
goal was to work 5 to 7 hours a week. And that's what I actually was. I did a pretty good job at sticking to that. Some weeks I work less, some weeks I work more, depending on if I was like doing something big. But it kind of forced me to build a business that wasn't tied to my time. And that was
Mhm.
very counter to what I was taught in school, because I think school teaches us like it's trading time for money. And
Mhm.
so much of my journey has just been, I call it drinking the entrepreneurial Kool-Aid. It has been learning what are other people doing, what is the best fit for me, working with coaches who push me to do more, go bigger, being in masterminds with people who are doing like really amazing things to make me believe I can do it too. So a lot of it has been being like in the right rooms with the right people.
Mhm.
So starting on how can I create systems to drive traffic, building out income streams over time, and then really just being strategic with the plans that I have, because I still have so many other plans. I have other brands I want to build. I know not everyone's brains are like that, and that's totally fine. But I just know I have to be very focused and one thing at a time.
Mhm. I love that you said the part about really building what is best for you, because I do think that a lot of people, they build what they see other people building and they don't
Yes.
always know, hey, maybe that's not a good fit for me, or that's not what I want, or that's just not my season right now. Because again, you knew you didn't want to do one-on-one. You knew you didn't want to do 20, 30 hours a week on top of your full-time job. Like there were certain constraints you gave yourself, and then you were able to work within those constraints because you you knew, hey, it's got to work with this, right? It's got to work with what my goals are, what my desires are, versus, which I think is a lot more common now even than it ever was before. Because I think when both of us started our business, I mean, I started blogging in 2011, so I actually still get Amazon affiliate checks. I remember when I I gave birth to my daughter last year, and like I don't even know how I found it, but I realized I had like a full year worth of Amazon affiliate stuff that I had not cashed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just found like $1,000 to like now get all my baby stuff that I need for the next like however long that lasted. But diapers for months kind of thing. But it was something that when I first started, and maybe it was similar for you, there wasn't as much guidance. There wasn't as many programs or courses or coaches telling you here's how to do things. I mean, there really weren't almost any when I started. It was very much just like just going to try this and see what happens. And so I think in a lot of ways that gave me an advantage because I didn't have all this influence of like, here's how I have to do it. Right. And so I really love that the way you've approached things is very much focused on what your chosen constraints are, right? Like you could have worked more, maybe, but you didn't want to. And that's great, right? So you could have done one-on-one, not the thing you wanted. So you were clear on that. And so I think the thing I want everyone listening to really be thinking about is maybe blogging and ebook creation is not what you want to do, but the purpose of any side hustle or any hustle as an entrepreneur altogether is really matching what's best for you with what you can monetize. So, do you have any thoughts about that? Because again, like I think it's really cool to have things that just kind of sell and have no delivery. I need to I need to reevaluate. I'm like, where are my opportunities for that? Because I'm so delivery heavy right now. But any thoughts about how you can figure out what type of additional streams of income is a best fit for you?
Well, I think it starts with learning what's possible and seeing what other people do. And I also think that there's this element of letting go of maybe identities that we hold on to, especially as healthcare professionals. I was early on, I thought I had to work with patients one on one because I was a dietitian. Dietitians work with patients. And so I really had to let go of that identity that in order to be a healthcare provider, I have to be providing direct care to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of my journey has just been like discovering what's possible. What are people doing? But then also figuring out what resonates with you, because it can be so easy to see someone who's successful in entrepreneurship and be like, well, if they're successful, that must be what I need to do. So for me, if I would have started working with patients, I would have hated it. The idea of calling and scheduling appointments and just that just stresses me out. I am not here for that. Billing insurance, I'm just like, that does not sound fun to me. And I would have burnt myself out and I would have been like, entrepreneurship is horrible. But I was lucky that I did have guidance and I was able to continue to see what's possible because I mean, I'll just kind of throw out some different things that are available for any healthcare professional as like different side hustles. You could do more like behind the scenes work where maybe you're like, okay, I want to be a freelance writer or a blogger. I want to do self-publishing. I want to maybe even focus on social media. If you're like, no, I want to be in front of the camera. I want to maybe work with brands. I want to do media work. I want to teach, do webinars, live speaking engagements, podcasting, even being an influencer is like a legit thing that you can do nowadays. You also might be more technical and you're like, I don't want to be the business owner, but maybe I want to be a virtual assistant and I want to help other healthcare professionals behind the scenes on their business. Or even if you're just getting started and you want to learn business skills, I mean, that's a great way to be working with someone to learn behind the scenes. But also, you can do more digital creation of products. Like I've been talking a lot about digital products, so handouts, workbooks, ebooks, online courses, memberships, affiliate marketing. I haven't even gone into. You could be selling physical goods, selling supplements, selling even direct sales. Some dietitians and healthcare professionals will team up with different direct sales programs that they align with. And, think of things like, gosh, I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head. I
I mean, I
always think
used to
of,
do Beauty Counter back
yes,
when they were, I mean, I
existed.
know they're trying to come
I
back.
think, yeah. Yeah. And actually, I've had dietitians I've worked with who they're so passionate about that brand and they leverage their expertise as a dietitian and Beauty Counter, and that is their business.
Hmm.
Other dietitians who I've worked with who, like Amare, which is a supplement company, even thinking of like Tupperware, Pampered Chef. I even think of like Avon, like some of the old school ones that honestly early on, that was like the side hustle a lot of people did was direct sales.
Hmm.
But even working, of course, working with patients one-on-one, also one-to-many group programs, doing coaching, even for like dietitians, doing cooking classes, grocery store tours, culinary work, consulting, employee wellness. There's just so many different things that are possible. So I think the first step is figuring out what is possible and then figuring out what aligns best with me. What do I want to do? And I think early on, just the idea of admitting that I didn't like working with patients one-on-one felt almost counter to being a dietitian. Because I think, I'm going to go a little bit into the weeds here, but hang in there with me. I think so often of how we as young adults, thinking like 18, 19, 20, 21, we are picking a career that we're going to do for the rest of our life. And so we pick this
Before our
healthcare
brains are even developed.
before our
Right.
brains are even fully developed. We pick this career that we're going to do for the rest of our life. Then we get in it, we spend a lot of money, a lot of time, we get these credentials. And what happens when we get in that field and we realize I don't love it? We feel like, well, shoot, now what? I feel stuck because this is what I'm supposed to do. And that's what I've loved about entrepreneurship, to know that I could leverage the parts of nutrition that I love with the other parts of me that I love.
Hmm.
But I will say I felt a lot of like, oh, what's wrong with me? I don't like working with patients one-on-one. Now, when I worked in the VA, I did home care. I got to go hang out with really cool older adults in their homes and talk about food. I loved that. That was fun. But the idea of like doing outpatient or clinical counseling and even working like in a hospital and clinical, that just like that was not it for me. And I felt like, what's
Hmm.
wrong with me? I'm a
Hmm.
dietitian. I spent all this time, all this money doing this. This is what I have to do. And I'm so grateful that I learned that there's another way and that I can do things that I love that aren't even specific to dietetics work, but I could still add a little flavor with that dietitian hat that I wear. So,
Hmm.
so I always go back to the fact that sometimes we stay in positions, jobs, or even side hustles that we don't love because we feel like we have to, because I am the dietitian, I am the
Hmm.
healthcare expert, and that's, this is what I can have to continue to do, instead of understanding there's so many other cool things that you could do.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, even when you run your own business, I feel like if you spend years building something that becomes kind of like not what you want to do anymore. And then
Yes.
I've seen a lot of businesses, especially this year. This is like the year that everybody's changing, but myself included, where you make these changes and people are like, "Oh my gosh, does that mean XYZ doesn't work anymore?" Or maybe you never cared about this in the first place. Like I remember I shut down my nutrition business officially in 2021 to go all in on the business coaching side of things. And I think it's so right to say there are things. I'm sure you didn't start this career for nothing, right? You didn't just get like tossed into it and you hated it from day one, right?
Yeah.
And not that you hated it, but like I think there's parts of it that you love, and then there's parts of it that you don't really realize are not for you until you're in it. And even with your own business, it's like you build something that you're like, okay, yes, technically this is making money, but is this really what I want to keep doing? And I think it's really important for everyone to always be paying attention to like, is this actually still a fit for me? Because again, it's like, how are you supposed to know until you actually do something, right?
Yes, and I always celebrate when I see someone do a big pivot. What other people might see as failure or what are you doing or you're crazy to walk away from that. I think that's awesome because we only get one life. And why spend it doing something you don't love? I have a really good friend who I've been in masterminds for years. She's a physical therapist, and she walked away from a multi-million-dollar practice that everyone's like, you're crazy to stay. And she actually tried to stay to the point that she almost burned herself out, but she just like, I don't love it. So she walked away and really leveraged. She does business consulting and coaching with physical therapists. But like I just am so happy for her because of what other
Mm-hmm.
people see as safe and secure and don't take that risk. I love it when people take risk. I love it when people pivot. I love it when people just follow their heart of what they want to do because again, you only get one life. Like let's spend our time doing the things that we love.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm going to take a hard left. I want to talk a little bit about the part you were mentioning about building traffic first,
Yes.
because I would love to know, has that changed for you in the way that you run your business, or have you had to kind of like go back and change your approach with all the AI stuff, all the Google updates? Like, was there any point where you had to rebuild, or did you find that the work you had done pre all that stuff was able to translate well into the weird environment we're in now with finding information online?
So I will say that marketing is one of the biggest challenges I think for any entrepreneur trying to find the right eyeballs, the people who are the right fit for you and your stuff and all of that. And because I do have multiple brands, I have multiple streams of income, but I will say I think one of the things about business and life is it's always changing, right? And I remember right when I started my blog in 2019, I saw these articles that said blogging is dead. And I'm like, oh no, I just got into blogging.
Oh.
And I'm so glad I didn't listen to that because it's absolutely not. But I see stuff where people are saying like, oh, AI is taking over this, that, and the other. And I just think things are always changing and we have to always change and adapt too. And so I talked about multiple streams of income. And I think I also kind of mentioned multiple streams of traffic, but that's just been one of my focuses when I talk about marketing. So I am a blogger. I use SEO and I drive traffic through Google. I've been lucky that my website has never been really hit big. It's gone up and down over the years, but so does everything
Hmm.
and the economy, right? Everything goes up and down. That is normal. I think sometimes we get so excited and we live for the highs that when the lows happen, we get devastated and think we're failing instead of just
Hmm.
understanding everything is like this up and down. And so,
Hmm.
so, um, so my website still gets good traffic, but I also focus on other streams of traffic, like for example, Pinterest. Right now, I'm really leveraging YouTube for the geriatric dietitian. One of my goals is actually to monetize YouTube and get YouTube ads, because again, another stream of
No,
income. I
that's
haven't
awesome. I love it.
haven't added one to that brand in a while, so I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I need to do that. And so, yeah, marketing has continued to change, but I just look at it as, we just have to adapt and change. And AI, I'm excited for AI. I think AI is a wonderful tool. It has helped me to be more effective and efficient in what I do and even how I teach my students. I'm just so excited how we're able to do things faster and more efficiently. But I also think of the fact that I still believe AI is never going to replace humans. I think we're getting to the point where people are so frustrated with AI. They want individualization. They want to have an expert help them with, like, okay, show me exactly what I need to do for me and how to do it. And
Hmm.
even just that accountability and support and someone to help them. So when I think of like the healthcare space, even the business coaching space, I never worry about AI. I always talk like, so my podcast, Dietitian Side Hustle, I call it my practice and imperfection. I don't edit it. One of the things about me is I often stumble my words. I'll say the wrong thing. Sometimes my brain just goes poof and everything leaves and I forget what I'm talking about. And I used to feel like that was a big flaw and failure in me. And I'm like, oh, I can never do what I'm doing now because of that. But it's become my practice and imperfection. And I found that the more I show up as imperfect and people realize, well, I don't see Katie stumble a word and think, oh, she's horrible, I don't want to work with her. It gives other people permission to be imperfect
Hmm.
and to pursue their dreams. So I always joke that AI will never replace me because AI could never stumble their words. And like if you would know if you saw an AI Katie that like that's not me. And so I don't know. So I know that's kind of shifting from marketing, But I just see things are always going to evolve. AI's now, what's tomorrow? I don't know. But I
Mm-hmm.
think being an entrepreneur is being flexible and continuing to adapt and adjust and learn. And with marketing, that's what we do too. And again, I go back to that multiple streams of traffic because I do understand if my website gets hit and all of a sudden Google says, okay, we don't want to show your stuff. Okay. I still got Pinterest. I still got YouTube. I still have other, and also my email list. I think that's really important too for entrepreneurs is having like a way to
Mm-hmm.
communicate with your audience directly. So, and it's
Mm-hmm.
stuff you build out over time too. We've both mentioned how we've been in business for a while. It's often when we start, we tend to look at people who've been in business for a while and feel like this is where I should be instead of understanding you just start, you're sowing seeds, and eventually the harvest will come. You just got to keep sowing those seeds and understand that these things come with time.
Yeah. How long did it take you between when you started building like a traffic source to actually monetizing it?
Sure. So with the geriatric dietitian blog, I actually share like income reports for that. And I remember, I feel like the first piece of passive income you ever make is like the best ever. I remember like when I sold my first product for like $6, I was like, oh my gosh, because like I
I
didn't do
made
anything. I just got an email.
it.
Yeah, it's got an email. I made $6. I did nothing. But I will say, it took me about 18 months to really start monetizing that brand to where I would say it was making good money. Now, I think the first 6 months I made, I'm just kind of throwing this off the top of my head, I think it was like $67. So, I mean, not
Total.
a lot of money, but also it was like passive. I'm like, that's cool. And then
Mm-hmm.
the next 6 months, I think I made like around 700, but then it just continued to grow and grow where I'm making thousands and thousands. But I would say about 18 months is when I started making decent money.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I want to recognize that I say now, like 18 months, like it's no big deal, but that's a long time. That's a
Mm-hmm.
long time that I invested in building traffic and doing work that wasn't making money in the immediate moment. Now, I will say, as I was working on building my traffic to make passive income, I was doing contract gigs. So I was making money. I call it like now money and later money. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing like contract work to make money in the now while I was working on building a brand that I knew would make me money later.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in the day to day, I will say I struggled myself with even like my mindset of thinking this is never going to work. What am I doing? Okay, I see other people are doing this. I know it's possible, but this isn't going to work because 18 months is a long time. But then once I hit that tipping point, it's been wonderful. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also, again, I mean, I look back, that was like 2021 that I will say it started. It's like 5 years ago and it's still continuing to make passive income and it's lovely.
Yeah.
So,
I I feel like there's such a trend towards how fast everything can be nowadays, especially in business, because that's, I mean, honestly, that is what sells for business coaching to say, I'm going to help you do XYZ in like the least amount of time possible. And so I think those claims just get more and more extreme as time goes on. And people think, oh, I should be able to make six figures in my first like 3 months of starting a business. And I feel like those of us who started ours earlier, we never had those expectations. We were never like, I'm
yes.
going to monetize this immediately. And to be fair, I think you can go faster now than you were able to do when I started. I think Instagram existed, but we weren't using it to sell stuff. So it was pretty much a slow burn. I think I was doing my own blogging and then working for another person who, he eventually started letting me be a little bit more forward facing. But I was blogging my own content for 2.5 years before I ever took a paid client. And that was like 2.5 years of, I want to say unpaid work because the work I was doing for the other person's company was earned or was paid. But I literally did 2.5 years of my own stuff for free just to build my business and build my audience, build my brand. And so I think I'm not saying people should take 2.5 years before they monetize something. I don't think it needs to take that long. To be fair, I monetized it as soon as I actually had my RD credentials, so that was part of the delay. But all of that to say, I do think this idea that things take time and that there needs to be a season of putting in before you are able to get out necessarily. That's really important. And I feel like a lot of times people are not shown that. And then they're like, why is this taking so long? Is this ever going to work? And maybe they do quit because they do think it's taking too long because, oh, so and so said it was going to take 6 months. And here I am 14 months later. And they don't realize that, like, oh, in 4 months, all of a sudden, like you hit
Mhm.
the little tipping point and took off and they weren't
Mhm.
willing to get there.
I think that's one of the problems with social media is we tend to see the positive and the amazing and the success stories that we feel like we're a failure when, we hit those ups and downs. But I know I said this before, everything's ups and downs. And especially like mindset is such a big thing for me in business because if it wasn't for surrounding myself with people who believed in me more than I do, if it wasn't for people who were there for me through the ups and downs and reassured me to keep going, I wouldn't be here because I get in my head a lot. I think, what am I doing? I'm not good enough. Other people do this better. There's no room for me. There's no space. And so, had I not been in the right rooms with the right people, I know I wouldn't be here right now. But I want to share one other thing that I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but there's this saying of like, if you get started, it's possible. So if you start a side hustle, you start a business, it's possible. But if you keep going and don't give up, it is probable. So it's really focusing on what do I have control over, focusing on the actions I'm taking and being consistent and showing up and knowing that the consistency is going to be that because I mean some people do get like the quick win or maybe they get a post that goes viral or something, sometimes those things do happen, but that's not how we build businesses. We build
Mm-hmm.
businesses based on that continued focus of not giving up, continuing to work on what's going on inside here because it will take us out more than anything else will, and just understanding there's ups and downs and the downs are part of the journey.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I do think hopefully people are starting to realize that, especially after I think 2020 through 2023 was kind of an anomaly. So for those of us who started before 2020, it was like, oh, we actually had a normal experience of business building. And then there was that blip of, wow, everybody's buying online things. And then now we're kind of back in the actually, you need to demonstrate that you can actually help me and not just like, you know, say 5 words and take my money, so I do feel like we're heading back into a kind of more normal season of how business is supposed to operate. So I know that a lot of people who got into this space in that boom time are kind of in a bit of a rude awakening. And so I think these conversations can be helpful because the stuff that got us off the ground is still working. It's not like it doesn't work. It's just not as sexy as the stuff that's like, make 6 figures in 6 months kind of thing. So I'm glad you're sharing that. And I think it's really important that whether you add 25 different side hustles or you're just inspired to even just add one where you can start to build something, I think this conversation can help people really get the gears turning a little bit about. I almost look at it like investing, right? Like when you invest into your retirement account, there's not a lot of money in there to start. But I know even I was looking at our accounts while we were doing some tax stuff this past month. And I was like, oh, wow, one of our retirement accounts gained like 10 grand last year. Like, that's cool. I like seeing that. And so it's 10 grand that just now exists because we put some money in a few years ago. Right. And so I feel like it's the same thing with what you're talking about, where the time and attention and energy you're putting in it doesn't give you an ROI immediately, but it compounds over time and it keeps compounding. And then it's very hands off and it's almost the same thing as a retirement account, except for you're able to actually use it and you don't have to wait until you retire to get
Right.
access to it.
Yes, absolutely.
So is there anything that you would want anyone who's listening who's like, this whole side hustle thing sounds really cool. I'd love to do it. Where do I start? What do I need to know? What would be like the one thing you want to leave people with that can help them get into this side hustle approach in the most effective way?
Wow. Gosh, I feel like there's so many things I could say. But I think probably just a message that I'd want to leave people with is just knowing that really anything's possible. I feel like sometimes we have these ideas in our head and these dreams in our hearts, and we feel like that's just too out there. That won't work. Who do I think I am? Instead of understanding if we can just get those out into the world will be radically changed by it. Because I know that healthcare professionals are amazing. They get into this field because they are helpers. They truly want to help people. And the work that we do is important. So I think it is opening your mind to understand that really anything's possible, discovering what's possible, then developing the skills to do that because, okay, this is possible, but how do I actually do it? I think one of the best ways to do something is find someone who's doing it successfully and learn from them. And then actually go out there and do it yourself while continuing to work on your mindset and those things that will get in the way. So, yeah, yeah. And also, I did want to mention I do have a book. And so I know I talked with Laura about this before, but all of last year, I was working on writing a book. And I will say, in an era of AI, when a lot of people around me were writing AI books, I joined a book writing mastermind and took a year to write this book. But it's something I'm very proud of. It is called Dietitian Side Hustle. And I will say, even if you're not a dietitian, this book is applicable for all healthcare professionals. Just replace the word dietitian with whatever your profession is. And this book, it is available on Amazon. Dietitiansidehustlebook.com is my official website, but you could search on Amazon. It's hardcover, paperback. If you're a Kindle reader, it's on Kindle. And if you listen to audiobooks, it is on Audible. I was talking to Laura about my whole process of like recording an audiobook. It's a lot. But this book itself, it's full of information to help you see what's possible, develop a plan to get started, and overcome what's going to keep you stuck. We cover over 34 different side hustle ideas, and then I even talk about, non-traditional side hustles that aren't even related to the field. So like, side hustles outside of the field of healthcare altogether. So it goes over all these different side hustles, what they are, how to get started, what's the best fit for you. But it's really more than just a book about side hustles. It's a book about business. It's a book about money. It's a book about mindset. It's a book about what's the difference between those who have success and those who do not. So it's really a personal and professional development book. It's about 400 pages long. If you count all the pages, there are workbooks, there are tools, there's a lot of stuff in here. And I created this book just as a tool to help dietitians and other healthcare professionals because I know that the journey of entrepreneurship can be hard. I want to do something more. I just don't know what it is. I don't know how to get started. Maybe for those who've tried before and they failed and they feel like, oh, I'm such a failure, I can't do this. And you're probably not a failure. And there's probably a lot you learn from that you could bring to the next time. But maybe it's picking something that's better suited for you. Maybe it's figuring out the correct way to do it and also staying in there long enough and working on your mindset because our mindset will take us out. It'll get to where we stop, we give up. And I talked about how if you keep going, your success is probable. And if we don't continue to work on our mindset and just that internal dialogue, we are very likely to give up if we're not continuing to work on that. So anyways, Dietitian Side Hustle is a book that I'm very, very, very proud of. And I just want to get it in as many hands as possible because I know that it will help people on their journey of creating side hustles, additional streams of income. And actually the subtitle is A Comprehensive Guide for Starting a Side Hustle, Making More Money, and Loving What You Do. Because to me, that's what's most important is creating something you love.
Yes, I love it. Well, we will absolutely link to that so you can get it on whatever channel you want to get it on. Katie, is there anywhere else people can connect with you if they want to get in touch?
Sure. So I am on Instagram at the Katie Dodd. I am on Facebook. I have a Facebook group called Dietitian Side Hustle, although I will say other healthcare professionals are more than welcome to join us in there. My podcast, Dietitian Side Hustle, is found on all the major podcast directories. We drop episodes every Wednesday. I have a website, Dietitian Side Hustle, and my link tree is katiedodd.com.
Amazing. Well, we'll link to all that in the show notes. You guys can check it out and start to see some inspiration for what your side hustles can look like too. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all that with us, Katie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you here next week on the Nourished CEO podcast. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. And if this episode got you thinking about how you're actually wired to run your business, your next step is to take the CEO type quiz. Because here's the thing, most of the business advice out there was built for someone specific. And if that someone isn't you, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how many strategies you implement. It's just never going to feel right, and it's never going to work as well as it should. Knowing your CEO type changes all of that. After you take the quiz, your results page will walk you through your natural strengths, your biggest blind spots, and a concrete game plan for your offers, messaging, sales, and even your calendar, all built around how you actually think and lead. Not generic advice, your specific direction. It takes about 5 minutes and it's completely free. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to lauraschoenfeld.com/quiz. And if you already know your type and this episode resonated with you, share the quiz with someone else who needs it. The right framework at the right time can completely change how someone sees their business. And honestly, that's exactly why I made this. All right, I'll see you next time on the Nourished CEO podcast.